Okay, I want to go over logo design for you, and there's a few things within logo design that I want to go over first before you get started, and I really show you what your assignment is going to be. So the first thing we need to ask ourselves is what a logo is. So a logo is usually a symbol that a company will use that you can easily identify their products. It can be used on their packaging, on the product itself, uniforms for workers, t-shirts, promotional things, vehicles. Really, they're going to plaster that logo on everything that they can so that you can easily identify where that comes from. Okay, it's going to be something that the public can easily recognize, something that you are going to associate with that. So it's just one small part of a company. A logo really becomes what is called a brand box. So what a brand box is we store connections and experiences to that company within that logo. So you see that logo, and that logo then sparks memories of experiences or certain things that you associate with that, positive or negative, in different manners. So the difference between a logo and a brand is a logo is a symbol of the brand, whereas the brand is the whole experience itself. It's the whole company. It's everything that that company does, and everything that they offer. So a lot of times companies and organizations will talk about their mission and their vision and stuff. Mission statements and vision statements. We have them at school. The brand is all of that stuff together. The logo is where you store your experiences in relation to that brand. So how that goes with you. So when you look at some of the logos that are on the screen now, what type of experiences do you associate with them? Whether positive or negative. Some of these are brands that personally I've had great experiences with. I'm very much a brand loyal type of person. So as long as that brand continues to produce quality products, I'm going to go back to it. Whether that is a store, whether that is electronics products, or specialized equipment like the Amoco Brent one in the bottom corner. Those those companies have had I've had experiences with them that are positive, that I would return to them for. And those experiences are really all wrapped up in that logo for me. So I immediately think about those experiences and identify those experiences when I see that logo. Okay. So what makes a logo good? There's a couple different things on this list as to what makes it good, and we're going to go through each one individually. The ones that are, there's a lot of different lists if you go out and research this stuff as to what people define as a good logo. And the ones that have stars next to them constantly show up everywhere else, but the other ones are extremely important as well. And we'll talk about each one individually. So first is it needs to be simple. The ones that are simple work best because, one, they're easily recognizable, so people are going to remember them the most. Two, they can easily be drawn by a child. So depending on your target audience, if it is a child and you want to instill brand loyalty with that child, if you're advertising to them, you want a simple logo so that they can repeat it. They can draw it on stuff. They can play with it. It's also going to be, when it's this simple, it's something that people they quickly pick up on. And if they see it as your logo, they're going to start to see it in other places, and it's just going to be repeated over and over and over. Okay. The next one is scalable. You need a logo that's simple enough that it's going to look good whether it's huge or whether it's small. So if you think of like the Apple logo, you can make that and put it on a giant billboard and everybody's going to know what it is. But you can also take it and you can put it on the back of an Apple Watch where it's going to be really small, or the back of a phone, or on headphones or something like that. And people are still going to be able to recognize it easily, and it's not going to lose anything by being scaled up or scaled down. The next one is it should be memorable or impactful. You want to catch people's attention. While it's simple, it should be memorable. The target brand or the Target logo is very simple. It's two red circles that looks like a target, which makes sense. It fits their name. It's simple. People recognize it everywhere. And it's going to catch people's attention. One, because of its color and how bright it is and how much it stands out. And two, because of just how simple it is. Next one would be versatile. Versatile. A great logo should look good no matter where it's posted. From a billboard to letterhead to a website that you can access either on a regular computer or even on your phone. You should be able, which comes back to that whole scalable thing. Your logo should look good no matter where it is. All right. Business cards are pretty small. It should look good on that. It should look good if it's the main icon for an app that your company has. Your logo should look good on that. So you need to be able to work with it in different places and different formats so that people can really recognize it no matter where it is, and you don't have to use different versions of it. Next, it should be relevant and appropriate. So it should be relevant to your practice. So what do? You know, what's the purpose of your company? What does your company do? It's a little bit harder to just kind of do this out of nowhere. Otherwise, it gets a little too busy. But some of that relevance and appropriateness comes with establishing your brand and the experiences that person has with that logo. But it shouldn't. I mean, you shouldn't have a logo of a hammer or something like that if one of your things is technology or if you're selling food. It wouldn't make sense to have those two things together. So if you're using an icon or an image of a object, you really want it to kind of fit with what you're doing, so that it relates to what you're doing. It should also be timeless. Your logo should be able to last. Companies don't want to have to change their logo every 5 years, 10 years, whatever, because that is going to cause a lot of issues. You've got a lot of different logos out there that people then would identify with you, and it's identifying experience, and it almost becomes like you're reinventing yourself. So you really want it to be able to stick around for a while. So your colors should be really relevant. You don't really want to stick with, you don't really want to go with colors that are just appropriate for that time. You want to use color patterns and shapes and things that will last. The greatest example of this is sports teams. They kind of change their logos, especially the teams that are newer than some of the older teams. They change their logos and they change their color schemes and things like that to try and update them. You really want to create something that you don't have to do that with. That what you've got is really going to stand out and be there for a long time. Okay, it should be distinct. You don't want your logo to look like somebody else's, especially your competition. Whoever's coming up against you in your specific business or whatever field that is. Your logo should stand apart from all the rest. Okay, so try not to use things that are already out there, that are overused, or cliche. Targeted. Don't forget your customer. Who are you reaching out to? If you're reaching out to college age kids, you probably want a logo that you can put on everything. You can put on T-shirts, you can put on stickers or magnets or whatever, that those kids can then wear or put up on things or put stickers on their cars or whatever. That eventually becomes promotion for you. So think about who your target audience is and the best way to reach them and the best type of logo to use that they would be happy to put on or on their car or their books or their whatever they want to stick a sticker to or a T-shirt, things like that. Okay. So talking about logo changes, right? Those were our key formats for our key principles for making a good logo. Now we want to talk about why you would possibly want to change a logo. Okay, like we said, it should stand the test of time, but occasionally companies will want to rebrand. Okay, they will want to give people a new experience. They will want to kind of reinvent themselves. So there's three things that we're going to look at. There's rebranding, which is kind of taking what something is and really kind of changing people's experience with it. There's updating, which is just kind of bringing it up to date, and then there's just starting over completely. So the first one we're going to look at is rebranding. In 1997, Steve Jobs had walked away from Apple. He was its founder, he was its creator, he had moved on to do other things, and the company was really kind of suffering for it. It really was not in a good position. They were nearly bankrupt, so they needed a change. So they invited Steve Jobs back, and you'll notice their initial logo in 1976 was quickly changed. It's not a great picture of it, but it was very complicated. It wasn't easily repeatable, so they simplified it, and that's initially because it was one of their things was the Macintosh. Okay, was one of their big things. So they took that and they took the Apple, and they created that Apple logo with the colored stripes. When they wanted to rebrand and Steve Jobs came back, one of their key things is they wanted new, sleek, modern design. And with that, they wanted to simplify. Their products became simplified in their format and what they looked like. They started producing products that were modern, cutting edge kind of things. So they updated their logo to that. They went with a simple, it's the same shape. They didn't change the shape at all that had been around for 20 years. All they did was change the color. And then as they moved on, they kind of updated that. They turned it to silver and they added some highlights in it. And today it's really kind of that gray, white, flat Apple. But there's so much wrapped up in that logo that really anything prior to 1998 is unless you're connected to the company for a long time. Most people just associate Apple with that kind of new design, that color fits with whatever product it's on. So they completely rebranded themselves. They relaunched themselves into a company that now makes some of the top products in the tech industry. Okay. Also in rebranding was UPS. In the early 2000s, FedEx was kind of taking over that market. So they needed to really come up with something different. They had the same logo since the 60s. It was pretty simple. It was a shield with the package on top. But they really wanted to kind of make it look like they were moving. Okay? That they were doing a lot more. So they took that same basic shield. They got rid of the package with the bow on it at the top. And they created that sleek line. They kept their same colors, and some of their taglines that they connected to rebranding were moving at the speed of business, which that slashing line across the top of the shield gives that movement look. And then what can Brown do for you? And the whole point of what Brown can do for you is they really wanted to convey to the customer that they are there for the customer, and that what the customer wants, they are willing to do. So they want to meet people where they're at. Okay. So UPS has undergone some changes, and it was a rebranding that kind of launched them back into and gave them a little bit of a foot up again in that particular industry. Our next rebranding is McDonald's. Okay. Over a lot of years, they've kind of changed a little bit, but there was a point in the late 90s that the thought was that America was getting fat off of McDonald's. So they wanted a new look. They wanted new offerings. That's when they started to offer things like salads and the cafe and healthier options. So with that, they changed their logo a little bit. They still maintain the use of the golden arches. But in 2000, they added that happy smile to show satisfaction, not only with the food that you're getting, but with a satisfaction in lifestyle and things like that. So it was no longer just the arches with the name of the company. They were now going to be identified by the arches and satisfaction with that. As they kind of started to rebrand themselves with that and get the idea that they were making healthier options, they then would change to the I'm loving it idea, and then just straight to the arches. Okay, once those products and those offerings had been established and people understood that they could get them from McDonald's, that was part of their rebranding and getting themselves back into a new market and really kind of attracting people back to their restaurant. Then starting over, more recently, Gander Mountain, which was an outdoor store similar that focused on hunting and camping and things like that. Gander Mountain ran into financial trouble a number of years back, and they closed their stores. And in that restructuring and that bankruptcy and closing the stores, they had all these properties. They decided to rebrand themselves and start over. And this was more than just rebranding. They came out as a completely different company. No longer Gander Mountain. They are now Gander Outdoors, which would give you the idea that they provide more camping and outdoor lifestyle equipment and things than they do just hunting and fishing and things like that. They still sell products for hunting and fishing, but they're focused more on outdoor living and getting out, camping, and things like that. So they completely started over. They relaunched their product. You'll notice they changed their colors, they changed fonts, they changed their logo in itself is now the circle with the mountain as opposed to the circle with the mountain and the goose. Simplified their colors. They're now just blue and white, and they opened fewer stores. So they just started over. They took what they had as the foundation. They took the initial name, the Gander name, and they're still using it, but they're changing what is associated with that Gander name. So they wanted to completely start over and try and capture a little bit different market, maybe a broader market than they were getting earlier. In a business that I have been involved in with selling my work, I commonly would use my last name, Freilich Arts, and then I wanted to change to something that is simpler. And why the change? Because one, I have a last name that's difficult to spell. It's complicated. There's a lot of letters that are silent that people don't necessarily always put in, or they leave out, or they add extras. But so the switch to 186 would be a little bit simpler. If I kept the pottery on there, it would allow for people to really understand what my business is. And it's not just a broad arts thing. It is a pottery business. The other thing is it simplifies it. 186 is going to be a lot easier to remember, a lot easier to spell, especially when looking it up on social media, things like Instagram or Twitter or something like that. While this logo that appears there is simplified and it fits with color scheme and what I'm looking for as you look at color theory, which we'll talk about in a little bit, it isn't simple enough. It's not really scalable. There's a lot of text in it. If I were to shrink it down, it would be really difficult to read. To enlarge it, it becomes just kind of big and bulky. So while this is one option for a logo, there are going to be several others that I go through in the process of rebranding what I do and renaming it and relaunching on social media and things like that. So sometimes changes are made because when you look at what you have in the business, is it really relate to people? Is it easy for people? Is it simple? And this would be a simplifying change as well as kind of a more defining change as to what the business would be. Which brings us to color theory, which I touched base on looking at that logo there. On Schoology has posted a worksheet on color theory. And what that basically does is it's an introduction to intentional use of color. So making choices of colors based on the emotions you want to convey to people, and how you want them to react to things. So in that color theory info sheet, it's going to break down your colors by groupings: primary, secondary, and then neutral. It talks about how each color is viewed by a person, the emotional attachments to those colors, and then it gives you some variants in the emotions and ideas attached with those variants in those colors. So what does more of a green blue look like? What type of emotion does that give, or what type of emotion does a brown or a tan give, or convey to people? So take some time to look through that color theory sheet, print it out if you need to, so that you, as you design your logos and design other things throughout the semester and the year, that you're using that so that people can really identify with, and your colors choices make sense with what you're doing. Okay. So with that brings us to your assignment. So using our design process and the things we have gone through for logos, you're going to develop a set of logo options for a food truck that you're going to be starting. Obviously hypothetical, but some things you're going to need to do. One is, it says you're going to be developing a set of logo options. So you should be developing 3 or 4 logos that, if you were doing graphic design for this business, you would have several different logo ideas that you could bring to the business, and then they could choose based on, what they think best fits. So I want you to come up with multiple options. So as you get ready to do this, there's some questions you need to ask yourself. What type of business are you going to be running? Okay, obviously it's a food truck, because that's, I've kind of given that to you. But what type of food truck is it going to be? And things like that. What is the name of your business? Because that needs to be pretty prominent. People need to be able to identify it. They need to be able to remember it easily. And then, how do you want to be identified? What do you want attached to your brand? Remember, at the beginning of this discussion on logos, we talked about your logo is a brand box. All people's experiences are going to be wrapped up in that. That's where they're going to store their ideas and their feelings about your brand. So how do you want that? What do you want that experience to look like? And how do you want people to identify with that? So the assignment itself, develop your set of logo options for food trucks. So what type of food are you going to be advertising? Are you going to be serving? So what type of food truck are you going to be advertising? That could break down to nationality. Is it Chinese food? Is it barbecue? Is it Mexican food? Is it American food? Is it Greek food? Think about what type of food you're going to be serving. Is it a niche type of food? Are you just going to be serving tater tots? Are you going to, the ones that just serve like cheese curds and things like that? Think about what you're going to be serving. And then with that'll help you kind of figure out what you want your advertising and your brand to start to look like wrapped up in your logo. Is there a color scheme already connected with the type of food that you're serving? If there is, then you probably want to go with that and use some sort of variation of that. What type of graphics do you need to communicate to the customer about who you are or what you're about? And then what will you be able to market through apparel and or giveaways? So when we talked about scalable and it needs to be adaptable to different things, you want to be able to put it on the side of a truck. You want to be able to put it on menus, on pieces that are printed on pieces of paper. You want to be able to put it on stickers and magnets. You want to be able to put it on your food truck's Instagram page so that people know where you're parked. You want to be able to put it on your website so that people know what you are before they, if they're looking it up while you're right there. So those are all things to think about as you start to develop this set of logo options. And we're going to be working with this business on several projects from moving forward from here, so that you can kind of see the development and how one small element like a logo would permeate an entire business. Also, that you can see the extent to which a graphic designer is going to work with one specific business. It's not going to be just, hey, here's your logo, go have fun with it. The graphic designer really kind of permeates a lot of different a lot of different parts of a business and a lot of different parts that business connects with people. So as you go through, this PowerPoint is also going to be is also posted to Schoology for you to look through and go through as you need. Your assignment sheet is posted to Schoology, and there's also a video on how to convert some drawings into digital. So I would recommend hand drawing some of your ideas down, and then we can always convert those to digital. So if you have any questions, make sure to ask along the way. And then, this is, have some fun in designing it and kind of dreaming big with this and what type of stuff you would like to see, or you would like to take part in. All right.